The Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew, the 16th chapter. Jesus said to the disciples, "Beware of practicing your piety before others in order to be seen by them, for then you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. So whenever you give alms, do not sound a trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, so that they may be praised by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward. But when you give alms, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your alms may be done in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And whenever you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, so that they may be seen by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received the reward. But whenever you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And whenever you fast, do not look dismal like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces so as to show others that they are fasting. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that your fasting may be not seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." The Gospel of the Lord. Please be seated. Grace, peace, and mercy are yours from the triune God. Amen. Last week, I took a vacation, and it was the worst vacation. Instead of going someplace fun, I stayed home with the intention of tearing apart our bathroom and planned to retile and put the whole thing back together again in just 1 week. Silly Pastor Nick. Of course, nothing went right. I made about 25 extra trips to Home Depot to get things I hadn't thought of. I got delayed at least twice every day. And now I am halfway done with my bathroom and back from vacation with no place to rest because our house is completely torn apart. But the very worst part is that I didn't do a good enough job sealing off the area, so dust got everywhere. Not just any dust, drywall dust. It's horrible. One of the reasons I was at least a little excited about my home improvement project was because it was tangible. I could use my hands to do this thing when so much of what I do as a pastor is not tangible. Here was finally something I could have some control over. Except, what in my story sounds like I had any semblance of control? Halfway through my vacation/work week, I got so mad because I was so far behind, nothing was going right, I had no control, and everything I tried was absolutely wrong. My grand scheme of having something to lord over blew up in my face and left me with a cloud of itchy, dry dust. I ended up throwing my tools around and getting mad at myself because I was just so incompetent, and I hate feeling incompetent. All that anger, all that uncertainty of what was actually behind my walls, all that insufficient knowledge, it was horrible. Now, I am, of course, kicking myself over my wasted vacation. I should have relaxed. I should have recharged. While I was busy trying to store up my treasures on earth by staying on time and finishing my bathroom with no hiccups, and finally having a nice bathroom. I really should have been storing up my treasures in heaven. This text in Mark and really all of Ash Wednesday feels so strange to me this year. Because usually I would spend it reminding people of the same thing we have spent this whole year being reminded of. That we are not in control. That we are frail and full of mortality. I would spend it reminding people that we are not God, and rather than being gods, we are in fact full of humanness that we so often try to bury. There is a pandemic raging, and with every person we love who gets sick, and every time we turn on the news and remember that we could get sick or lose our jobs, or the importance of wearing our masks, we remember our frailty. This whole year has shown us that we are not in control, that we are humans and are not invincible, that God is God and we are not. And honestly, all of that is still very true, but that's not the end of the story here in Matthew. I wonder if this year we need to hear the other side of being human too. Something about the other side of death, because we have spent so much time this year remembering death. There's more than just admitting that we are human, susceptible to suffering. This text also talks about treasure in heaven. Lent in these passages in Jeremiah and Matthew, they are not only doom and gloom, they are not only reminders that we are human, that we are dust. They are also a call back to God. They are about returning to God's way, to store up treasures in heaven, to free the oppressed, to break the bonds of suffering, to embrace the infinite holiness of God that is all around us, that is happening right now. To use the time that we have to explore that which cannot be touched. God, the divine, the infinite holy. All this talk about not disfiguring one's face during a fast, about praying on street corners and stuff, it's not saying don't do these things. It's saying don't chase acclaim in that. It's saying don't let other people's opinions of you be the center of your life. It's saying do that stuff, pray, fast, practice your religion, but who cares what people think of you? That's not the point. It's about the holiness that we encounter when we do that stuff. It is about those treasures in heaven, those mysterious encounters with the divine and each other that we hold close to our hearts. It's about recognizing all the ways that these ashes help us grow, not about the selfies with a cross on our foreheads. It's about seeing the wind in the trees, not the cool pictures we share on Facebook from our camping trip. It's about seeing the little kid smiling so big their face could crack. Not about showing a good face by going to the birthday party. It's holding something sacred between people who once had nothing in common. Not about doing our duty to volunteer at some food shelf. That's not the fast that God is looking for. Both Jeremiah and Matthew are a call back to the way of God. Our theme for Lent this year is return. We will be talking about returning to God's call for us, but it's not because of some sense of duty or obligation or because we should somehow do a better job. No, it's because, like people from all times and places, we too often forget why, the why behind so much of what we do. We forget the reasons that we do church to begin with, why we are Christians, and what it means to follow Jesus and to know his grace. It is to grow closer with God. It is to make real and vulnerable relationships with people. It is to know freedom. That's what it means to be a Christian. It's all about storing up these heavenly treasures. Those things that will really not rust, those times so sacred, the whole world stands still. And who doesn't want more of that? That's what the prophet Joel is calling Israel to. That's what Jesus here in Matthew is calling the disciples to, and is what God is calling us to all the time. God is calling us back to return to God. Because where our treasure is, there our hearts will be also. This last week, as I was remodeling my bathroom, I kept thinking about what it would mean for me to succeed at this. I poured myself into having a nice bathroom, of staying on time no matter what, and I totally missed a long weekend with my family. To take a long walk with my dog or just sit and stare out a window and drink coffee, I missed a chance to recharge with God. And now I'm kicking myself about it because my house is still torn apart and I missed out on those treasures of heaven. And the dust from construction that is all over my house is a constant reminder of the week I had seeking after stuff that will rust and fall apart anyway. And just like the ash on our foreheads, it is also a reminder of the growth, the redirection toward fuller life that is possible. To be clear, I'm not saying that I didn't need to do the bathroom, it needed to be done. There are things in life that need our attention too, but it's important that they don't consume us, that we recognize those temporal things for exactly what they are, temporal. That work promotion, that buying the car or getting someone the perfect gift, they don't define us. God defines us. Our treasure is in heaven, the things that do not rust. That is what defines us. That is where our hearts should be. In a few minutes, we are going to mark ourselves with ashes, and we are going to remember that we are dust, and to dust we shall return. And all of that is true. But this is not only a call to remember that we are not invincible and that we will die. It is a call to live well. It is a call to hold on to the good stuff, to use the limited time we have on earth to seek after treasures of heaven and to know God. These ashes and these next 40 days are a call to return to the way of the Lord, because it is what true and sacred life is all about. Welcome to Lent. Amen.